Good evening. It's a privilege to welcome each of you, new students and your families, returning students, faculty, staff, board members, Clark Heydrich, our Cook Award recipient, and other friends of the seminary. It's fitting tonight that we both matriculate new students and honor our Cook Award recipient, since servant leadership is one way to describe the character we hope our students and graduates will display. Servant leadership is not about heroic gestures, but about day-to-day faithfulness. And it is in day-to-day faithfulness that we see God's imprint in the world. Through witnesses like Clark, we know God has been in our midst. For our incoming students, this is a new chapter in your lives and the beginning of a journey. Yes, I realize I just mixed my metaphors, but they were both too good and I couldn't let them go. We welcome you to a community of conversation, spiritual inquiry, study, and celebration. You come from different geographic, ethnic, racial, cultural, and religious backgrounds, which means that your fellow students will have much to teach you, and you to teach them, even if you disagree with one another. This will be a place to test your ideas, to deepen your spirituality, to stretch your mind and extend your compassion. We are glad you're here. And the here you have chosen is a seminary, a word that does not mean a place to train religious people. Rather, it comes from the Latin seminarium, meaning a seed bed. It's a setting made fertile for your growth. But neither the seminary as an institution nor your professors as a faculty can do the growing for you. We can't, and we would be remiss if we tried. The growing is yours to do. It is yours to own. What we can provide is a setting of time, space, patience, and curiosity in which your vocational preparation can thrive. In our reading this evening, Jesus says, "I thank you, Father, Lord of heaven and earth, because you have hidden these things from the wise and the intelligent and have revealed them to infants." This is an odd thing for Jesus to say, and an even odder thing for the creators of the lectionary to assign as one of the passages listed as for education. It doesn't sound like Jesus is for education. It sounds like he is suspicious of the wise and the intelligent. So what's going on here? I think we can safely say that this is not a flat-footed anti-intellectualism at play. Jesus is described in Matthew and elsewhere as a teacher, and his students address him as a teacher. It's a title he owns and embodies. In fact, in the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus' teaching is divided up into 5 sections to mirror the 5 books of Torah. So Jesus is presented as a teacher like Moses. Jesus is at his heart a teacher, and he is not at his heart against wisdom. So what is he against? Why would he say that God is hiding knowledge from the wise and the intelligent? I want to suggest a parallel, that the wise and intelligent of Jesus' day are something like what journalist George Packer has called smart America in our time. Smart America is one of the 4 Americas that Packer writes about. There's free America, there's real America, smart America, and just America. Now, he has critiques for all of these. We're only going to focus on smart America tonight. But these 4 Americas offer rival narratives about our nation and our future. Here's how he describes smart America. The new knowledge economy of the 21st century created a new class of Americans. Men and women with college degrees, skilled with symbols and numbers, salaried professionals. They're at ease in the world modernity created. They welcome novelty and relish diversity. So far, so good. But the description turns a bit uncomfortable. Smart Americans believe in credentials and expertise, not just as tools for success, but as qualifications for class entry. Educated professionals pass on their money, connections, ambitions, and work ethic to their children, while less educated families fall further behind. with less and less chance of seeing their children move up. By kindergarten, the children of professionals are already a full 2 years ahead of their lower class counterparts, and the achievement gap is almost unbridgeable. And then Packer comes in for the final blow with his critique of meritocracy, which he describes as a deep commitment on the part of smart America to equality and fairness that assumes equal opportunities, and thus believes that outcomes will be commensurate with merit. He writes, "It's this idea of fairness that accounts for meritocracy's cruelty. If you don't make the cut, you have no one and nothing to blame but yourself. Those who make it can feel morally pleased with themselves, their talents, discipline, good choices, and even a grim kind of satisfaction when they come across someone who hasn't made it. Not, there but for the grace of God go I, not even life is unfair, but you should have been more like me." Smart America, like it or not, constitutes an elite class in relation to the other Americas. Higher education, especially at the level of graduate study, is the gateway into this elite group. So tonight, as we start a new school year and matriculate new students, I want us to be particularly careful of the pitfalls of smart America. Now, as a professor, I am in some ways unavoidably part of smart America. And so I'm not exactly happy about how Packer portrays us. Nor am I happy that Jesus elevates infants above the wise and the intelligent. But thankfully for you, this sermon is not about my feelings. What I want to explore is how we understand education as something other than mastery and control and privilege. Something that looks more like the learning of the powerless infant who owns nothing but attention and possibility. So, alongside the image of smart America as analogous to the wise and the intelligent, I want to invoke another image that is analogous to infants. That image is Serena Williams. Now, I get that this is not an intuitive connection. There is nothing infantile about Serena Williams. But then again, Jesus' metaphor of the infant surely should not be read as a reference to actual infants. Jesus is not saying that due to God's magical revelation, babies are going to begin to learn Hebrew and argue about Torah. Getting too literal with this metaphor will miss the point. Instead, I want to explore a way of knowing that is not an entry card that unlocks access to smart America. And Serena Williams can help me do that. The first thing we can learn about education from Serena is that there is a connection between loving and learning. In the Vogue article from a few days ago announcing that what Williams calls her evolution away from tennis, what other people are calling her retirement, she says this: "There comes a time in life when we have to decide to move in a different direction. That time is always hard when you love something so much." And she says of her childhood, "Tennis was chosen for me, and I loved that choice, and I couldn't have made a better choice." Before she became famous or earned prize money, she simply loved that she had been chosen for tennis. To learn something well, to commit time and energy to it, you have to love it. And you love it not for what it can get you. You love it for the activity itself. Theologian Dietrich Bonhoeffer wrote, "In order to be able to see something, we need to love it. If we are indifferent toward a person or a thing, we will never understand it. Perfect understanding is perfect love." We love in order to learn, and we learn in order to love better. I would argue that all of our academic endeavors begin by falling in love with a question. The faculty members in this room know what it was like to fall in love with a question. It was a question that drove us to spend hours, days, weeks, years researching and writing. We fell in love with questions like, how can we understand unity and diversity in Paul's letters? Or, how do I understand the recruitment and retention of African American males into master's level counseling programs? Or, How can we understand the Christian calling to perfection? Or, how can attachment theory inform and support counselor development? So many questions, so many particular questions to fall in love with. You, hopefully, are coming with questions you have fallen in love with. Perhaps, how can I provide guidance to a person who is struggling with depression? How can I help a community draw closer to God? How can I sit at the bedside of a dying person and provide consolation? How can I prepare myself to midwife the spiritual journey of another? How can I live in a way that cultivates the flourishing of all creation? Academic learning begins by falling in love with a question. So, what is the question you have fallen in love with that brings you here this evening? Hold on to that question. Keep it alive, because that question, that love, will lead you to work hard for the sake of the vocation that chose you. The second thing we can learn from Serena about education is that learning to be good at something means paying attention to the small things. One day, the day after Serena announced that she would be leaving tennis after the upcoming U.S. Open, Louisa Thomas wrote an article in which she focused on one small aspect of Serena's game, the toss. The toss before the serve. She writes this: "What makes her toss so effective is its precision and its consistency. What makes its precision and consistency possible is her ease. There is tension in the moment. Some of her best serving happens under duress, but none in her left hand. She cradles the ball delicately. Her toss does not drift under pressure nor drop when she's tight. It takes a lot of training to achieve that kind of consistency, no matter the situation, no matter the choice of serve. It involves a mastery that is not only mechanical, but psychological." And then she says, "I've been thinking about all those tosses that she must have practiced as a kid, lofting the ball over and over to hit the same mark. How boring it must have been." The thing about the toss is it's perhaps the least interesting thing to watch in a tennis match. It's the setup, the equivalent of putting the ball on a tee before starting a golf match. The serve, when the ball hits the racket, that's when the excitement starts. The rallies, the net game, even the beautifully executed lob, that's where the fun is. But the toss? It's not flashy, but you're not going to win without a good one. In your programs of study, you will be asked to pay attention to small things that may seem unimportant. The tense of a verb in Mark's gospel. The small differences in language between the DSM-4 and the DSM-5. The difference between 3 persons, 3 beings, and 3 modes of being. What happens to your amygdala when you're under stress? And why a papal bull from 1493 is so important. You've got to learn the toss. You've got to pay attention to the small things, because once you've fallen in love with a question, learning the small things, however boring it may seem, will be caught up in an endeavor worthy of your best effort. God has hidden things from the wise and the understanding and revealed them to infants. Our pursuit of wisdom and intelligence as sources of power and privilege, as entry cards into smart America, will only leave us pitted against others and limited in our thinking. In contrast, our loving attention to things that matter will prepare us for vocations of ministry, serving, and healing that the world right now so desperately needs. Tomorrow night, Serena plays the first match of her last tournament. Tomorrow, you begin your first day as a student at this school. As Serena's in the final days of doing something she loves, you are in the first days of falling in love with a question that will be the engine driving your learning, the motivation to keep you going when the repetition seems boring, the inspiration to pay close attention to all the small things that will make you excellent at what you do. So on behalf of the faculty, staff, and community of the seminary, I welcome you into our loving exploration of the questions that matter.